Thanks for tuning in and welcome to this week's review of The Hoax, starring Richard Gere and Alfred Molina.
Clifford Irving had nothing.
Oh, my life is at hand. I don't have a couch.
Until
I got it.
he told a little white lie.
I'm working on the most important book of the 20th century.
Couldn't you have just said of the decade?
Howard Hughes, the billionaire?
His exclusive, authorized autobiography.
And sold it for big bucks.
I want an advance to $1 million.
The Hoax is one of the movies I was looking forward to most this summer. Yet after seeing this clip, what can make a man go literally insane with paranoia and obsessive-compulsive disorder. To enjoy this movie, you really need to have an understanding of who Howard Hughes is. For anyone around the age of 30 and under who knows nothing of Howard Hughes, this movie may not be nearly as interesting. And I also think if you have no idea how powerful he is, some of this movie would seem flat-out unbelievable. While those who know him and knew how powerful he was, nothing in this movie will seem too outlandish. Just a quick Howard Hughes 101 for those of you who may be interested in seeing this movie. He was and accomplished what most men would want to accomplish in their lives. And he did all of them. He was one of the first billionaires. He was a Hollywood producer. He was an inventor, a hero, a ladies' man, an aviator, and a hell of a shrewd businessman. Some say he was just as powerful as some of the political leaders of his day. If you want to see more on Howard Hughes, there are several documentaries about the man. And if you want to see a couple of movies about him, you can see Martin Scorsese's film The Aviator to see him own Senator Brewster at the end of the movie. And you can also see Tommy Lee Jones play him in The Amazing Howard Hughes that was made back in 1977, just 1 year after Howard Hughes' death. Howard Hughes lived the last 20 years of his life in utter seclusion. Las Vegas even changed its laws to deal with Hughes. Before Hughes came into town, you had to show up at the courts to get licenses and purchase casinos, but not Howard Hughes. They just let him do it by telephone. Hughes' last public appearance was by telephone in 1972, which you'll see in this movie. He lived the last 5 years of his life without appearing or speaking to anyone publicly. Sorry for the quick Howard Hughes 101 for those of you who already knew Howard Hughes' background, but I wanted to at least touch on a subject for those that did not. This is a rare movie subject, and I think that needed 2.5 stars, to set up the review. And when it comes to the casting, I've never been a big Richard Gere fan. I only really liked him in Primal Fear, and I couldn't stand him in First Night in the Jackal. He plays his roles extremely cocky and arrogant, and I'm sorry, maybe that's what he's trying for, or maybe that's what the role requires, but it just annoys me. Now, this is actually the first movie of his I've seen in the theater. All the rest were on DVD and VHS. Now, Alfred Molina, he's quite another story. I've liked him in many movies. My recent favorites are Identity and Spider-Man 2. He usually gives excellent performances, and some of you may not know this, but he was actually in Raiders of the Lost Ark in one of his first roles. Yeah, he hadn't changed a bit, has he? The acting was actually very good. Richard Gere gives one of his best performances in the movie. The supporting cast also does an excellent job. There were no real problems with the acting in this movie. The plot to me is very interesting. Knowing what I know about Howard Hughes, it makes this movie very easy for me to get into. But I have to be careful with a movie like this because, since I'm fascinated with the Howard Hughes story, I may be more interested in this movie maybe than the average viewer. If you have no knowledge or very little knowledge of who Howard Hughes was or how significant he was as an individual, I don't know if you will like this movie as much as I did. Don't get me wrong, it is a good movie, but knowing more about the man really helps the understanding of how this movie plays out. The execution of the story is nicely done. I felt they told the Howard Hughes story well without leaving many gaps, and even though I knew much of the history of Howard Hughes and the Hoax, it was still told well and it even had several things I did not know or at least see in that way. The ending of the movie was satisfying. I felt like they tied up all the loose ends. I hope you get a chance to read the summary text at the end of the movie. The theater I watched it in had the projector slipped down and I was only able to read about half of the screen before the text went out of view. From the parts that I could read, it gave a pretty good summary of what happened to the characters after the film ends. For my overall rating, I give The Hoax 3.5 stars.